What's going on, everyone? This is the very first video in the Bass Team Championship Series presented by Omnia Fishing. Now, what's going to be really cool is this is going to be a different style of video than my normal content. You guys are going to get to see every decision that goes into me finding fish, moving with fish, and preparing and fishing a tournament, which is unlike anything I've ever shown you guys online. So I'm very excited to bring you guys this series of footage. Now, as I mentioned, this is presented by Omnia, so you guys are going to get to see how I use the Omnia Pro app to move with my fish and make decisions throughout the tournament days and practice days that help me have success or be successful in the event. So if you guys want to check out that Omnia Pro app, use this QR code or click the link in the description below and you guys can get a free 7-day trial to the Omnia Pro app so you guys can prepare the way I do for your days on the water. Now, this video is going to be documenting the practice for Hubbard Lake. One of the unique things about Hubbard was that going in, we didn't know if it was going to be a spawn event, a post-spawn event, or maybe even have some pre-spawners still mixed in and left. So I didn't intend to go up and pre-practice for the tournament. I didn't intend to go up prior to that Thursday before the event to try and dial in what these fish were doing. But unfortunately, I didn't get to go to Canada this year, so I took a day on Memorial Day weekend and just went up and tried to understand what these fish were doing, where they were at, and what phase that these fish were going to be in. We've had a really warm spring, and so the water temps have warmed up really quickly. Now, normally Hubbard is like a early June spawn time. Like that first full moon in June is when you expect a big wave of fish to push up. But because the water temps were already 64 degrees during pre-practice, I was finding fish on bed around that first full moon. Around. There we go. Wind him around. How big that is. It's fat though, super fat. Four-pounder? 390. Now, what's really unique, too, is that the water temps are around 63 to 66 degrees that day, and so I was expecting these fish to be full-blown post-spawn. And what I was doing was going around and fishing these isolated grass patches or these isolated areas where fish should be on bed with a little Cindy rig from Great Lakes Finesse. It's a stealth ball head with a little drop minnow on the back. You cast it by those areas and just wind it through, and you can get a ton of bites doing that. Now, Cindy rig was a big part of my practice as well, but that pre-practice really helped dial me into certain areas. Now, I don't think I would have had the same success in the tournament had I not gone up to the pre-practice, because I got to understand the areas that these fish wanted to be in for the spawn, and the areas that these fish were all really staged up on, and just by chance I was fishing the west side of the lake a lot, which is going to come into play as we get into practice, which is going to be extremely windy from the west. It's a big one. A real big one. There we go. Heck yeah, dude. That drop minnow is the deal on a ball head. Thank you, Miss Smallmouth. So I kind of lucked into a couple things. I think when you have a good event, when you do well on a body of water, you have to have a little bit of luck and that factor on your side. But I go into pre-practice, I was throwing the Cindy rig around, and I ended up catching a ton of fish that day. I had just about 20 to 22 pounds. Really phenomenal day. A couple fish over 4 pounds. And just kind of dialed in some of the areas that were going to help me play throughout that tournament and the practice to locate what these fish were doing. So that really led me into the practice. Now, going into that Thursday of practice, I really expected these fish to be post-spawn and really pushing out towards that deeper water. I was fishing 64 to 66 degree water temps during the pre-practice 2 weeks prior, and even though we had a new moon on the 7th, I was expecting these fish to already be off and really out towards that deeper water post spawn, kind of hanging out, maybe mayfly bite, but I wasn't expecting a spawn bite. So I go out for practice on day 1 and I get on the water and see the water temps are still only 64 degrees.
There we go. That's a good one. Oh.
Now here is where a lot of the luck really starts, and I started that morning throwing a popper around some shallow cover. Those same areas that I found in practice, pre-practice, I was throwing a popper around and I caught 22 pounds like right away. Day 1 of practice, I get out there, I think second or third cast, end up catching 1 over 4.5, I then catch a 4-pounder, I then catch a 3-pounder. I end up catching 22 pounds in the first hour and a half of practice, which is going to really kind of be important later on throughout the practice period because it gives me some areas to understand that fish are at. Now going into practice, I start to recognize and look at the wind over the next couple days. It's going to be a hard, predominant west wind. It's going to be blowing offshore from the west. It's going to basically eliminate the entire east side of the lake. If you have anything on the east side, it's not going to play. So I lucked into the fact that I practiced pretty much entirely on the west side of the lake during that pre-practice, and it really helped me because it gave me some areas to look at. So now that I've gone and caught about 22 pounds throwing a popper around, I'm trying to expand on that pattern and find some more bites going outside of just that morning mayfly hatch window. Now obviously you can't just bank on a popper for the tournament, and so I had to find like a secondary supplemental bite. Now I knew the Cindy played in pre-practice. You cast a bad piece of cover, you slow wind it around, you catch a pre-spawner, post-spawner, maybe one that's actively spawning on that piece of cover. In that day 1 of practice, that bite really fell apart for me. Like they just didn't want to get on the Cindy, they would eat it kind of funny, and that's when I picked up the sneaky. Sneaky underspin's gone. That fish tried to take it from me. How big that one is. We're working on a bag today and we're not even trying. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. How big is it? For me, the sneaky underspin is like the supplemental factor to the Cindy. And the reason that I think this is that blade on the bottom gives this bait more flash, and it helps draw some of these fish to the bait. Now because we did have a mayfly hatch, I put a green pumpkin, drop minnow on the back, and I think it just looked like what those fish were keying in on. That blade helped draw them to it, and I ended up catching some more really good fish. I think I finished day 1 of practice with like 23.5 pounds. Like I was winding around, I was getting bites winding, I was getting bites on the popper, and then it really got really brutally windy. By about 3 o'clock, it was almost so windy you couldn't even fish. Now I'm going to take you guys through day 2. A lot of that's going to be me talking to the camera on the water, so I hope you guys enjoy this next segment. Okay, morning of practice, day 2. I didn't record much on day 1, just kind of put up the 360 camera and was taking some video off of that. On day 2, I'm up here at the north end launch. There's no one else here right now. There's a huge mayfly hatch going. I didn't know that was happening yesterday. I saw it later in the day when I was running over into the East Bay, all the mayfly carcasses. So the sun's coming up, it's light enough where I can run. I'm gonna make a run down to the east arm. It's gonna blow out of the northwest today, which is pretty much gonna set up just like Sunday is forecasted to set up. So I'm gonna run down to the east launch, see if I can't get on a topwater bite there, like first thing, and then probably run back up here and keep checking some of this stuff. I think I'm gonna look for like dead water. I'm gonna look at that water that no one else is on, just to see if I can't find something weird. That's where I tend to do my best, is in like that weird zone, that weird water. But I got to check that stuff in the East Arm real quick, and then I can run back up north and see if I can't get any of this stuff to go. So that's the game plan for today. See what we can make happen. But let's make that run real quick. All right, if you don't know, I don't know. So is it a valve? There's a fish. What is that? Okay. I don't know either. I thought it was weird. Hubbard, practicing for a tournament. There we go. That's a good one. This fish has been caught at least 2 or 3 times. He's got holes all over in his mouth. Thanks, buddy. For me, topwater is going to be such a big piece to this puzzle. Like having that first morning bite where you can catch 18 to 23 pounds like we did yesterday. I mean, like, if you can do that first thing with the topwater, it makes so much more sense than missing this bite and starting to look for those shallow fish right away. Like, I don't understand. I'm a little shocked there's no one else up here yet. Whether that's because no one wants to fish the north end, or whether that's because everyone's sleeping in, I don't understand. It's not like yesterday the whole lake wasn't covered in boats. There were literal times where I couldn't pull in on a spot because there were 3 boats like right around it. It's 4 fish. They're all post spawners though. That area I was in yesterday had pre and post spawners. Or they were just fat post spawners, like they'd been done for a while. Weather has not gotten any better. It's still rainy and cold and kind of nasty. So I took off the chest camera. We're just going to run the 360 for now. So I started off the morning with those couple topwater bites. Neither one were huge. I would say probably 3.5 to 3.75, which is what most of these fish are that are around these beds. I don't think it's going to be that difficult to catch 17 pounds on Sunday. I think most guys are going to have 17 to 18 pounds. I think where you separate yourself is at 19 to 20 plus pounds. I did catch 1 4-pounder, 4.25 pounder on that little Great Lakes Finesse Sneaky and the drop minnow. They got off the Cindy rig, which they were on in pre-practice, and they got on that underspin, just a little bit extra flash. I think it creates a little bit extra vibration that's going to help these fish key in on that bait. That's why I picked that up and started throwing that instead. And yesterday they were mauling that thing. Like, I jumped off a really, really big one, kind of tied my hands, and then didn't get a good hook set into him. Caught 3 or 4 over 4 pounds on that thing yesterday. That thing was the deal. It continues to be the deal. It might change. It might go back to a Cindy. It might go to something totally different, but kind of the same deal today. I've not touched a single spot I touched yesterday. Everything that I fished is brand new water. It's all brand new clean water. So to catch another 4-pounder is good. It kind of gives me another area. I caught a couple over 3.5. So we're right around that 17, 18 pound mark. Where we need to separate ourselves is that 18 to 20 pound mark. And if we can get to that 20, I'll feel pretty dang good on Sunday. It's not as easy as I was expecting it to be. and I think that actually plays into my favor. Just to note, one thing that's been really, really key is Omnia's wind tracker on their app, because the wind is playing a huge factor. So it's limiting certain areas that you can fish. With the wind blowing into some of these areas, it's keeping myself off of them, it's keeping other boats off of them. That's why I decided to run and check some of the stuff on the east side of the lake. We're supposed to have a pretty hard east wind here starting in a little bit, and it's supposed to keep blowing all the way through Sunday, the tournament. So kind of keeping track of what that wind is doing has been really, really key. I've been staying on that Omnia premium app just to really keep an eye on what that wind is doing, what direction it's blowing out of, where it's hitting the hardest, in those areas that I can get to and I can't get to. Maybe it's pushing some cleaner water into some of those areas. A lot of guys were running the same stuff I was running yesterday, though. You see a lot of these guys in the 10 to 13 foot range. And I've been trying to kind of get in like that 10-foot range where you're getting those pre and post spawners, as well as like the 1 to 2 to 3 foot range where you're still getting some spawners. And really those ultra shallow fish are ones that other guys kind of ignore sometimes. We'll see. Keep messing around. Keep you guys updated throughout today at practice and obviously tomorrow. But so far, so good. That's what we want. They crushed that thing. It's morning of day 3 practice, and I didn't talk to the camera first thing this morning because when I got to the ramp it was dark, and yesterday was pretty successful. I kind of expanded on a couple things that I thought were going on, and so that made me feel really good. But I tried to run a bunch of brand new water, like look at stuff I've not looked at before. And starting off this morning, I don't know if that was a really good idea because I think my pattern's going away from me. What I had found was that these fish were in like 6 to 8 foot of water, and if you found like clumps of grass, you could catch those fish around them. I had 2 blow-ups on the top water this morning. Both were like 5 foot behind the bait for some reason, and there's a huge mayfly hatch going on, so I thought I could get on a decent topwater bite. So I came over to the area I wanted to start at tomorrow just to see if they would get on that topwater too. And for some reason, those fish just either wouldn't come up and look at it, or I could still see them kind of on Panoptix perspective mode, but I couldn't get them to come up and eat that topwater very good. I don't know if it's because it's so calm. It wasn't calm when I launched the boat. It was actually pretty rough. But I'm afraid my pattern's kind of going away from me. So I'm going to scramble a little bit. I'm still going to look in that 7 to 9 foot range. Maybe push up a little bit shallower. The area I started in, there's a tournament going on at the south end. The area I started in actually has a tournament going out of it, and there's like 6 boats on it. So I don't know if these fish are just feeling the pressure, if they're just kind of getting wary of all the boating pressure and fishing pressure they're getting, but the guys are leaving this area here pretty quick. There's still a couple fish on beds down here. I can see them on perspective, but I've not really like tried to catch them. But I've also not seen anyone catch any fish down here. I don't necessarily want to practice on the east side very much. We're supposed to have a pretty strong west wind tomorrow, and just seeing what it was like this morning with that west wind, I was going to start over there and throw a popper around just to see if I couldn't get him to bite. I'm kind of glad I came over here because it gives me some perspective on what some of these areas are going to look like first thing in the morning. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know if it's just a different weather conditions, like it's blue bird skies right now, or if it's something other than that going on. But man, caught me off guard when those fish would need a topwater. I'm hoping it's not falling apart. Like, I'm hoping I still am around the right fish. I mean, everyone's doing the same thing I'm doing. I don't know if it's a wind thing. I don't know if I'm missing it. I don't know if these fish are already pushing out deeper and I'm not getting on that bite. There's a lot of guys practicing that deep 12 to 20 foot zone. Everything I catch out there is pretty small though. So I don't know if that's a thing that I should be doing or if it's something I just need to kind of stay away from. And as Dirds and I have said, someone might find them out deep, but that's not the pattern I'm on. And the more and more I see that, the more and more I'm like, man, someone might find them out there, but that's not what I'm doing. I just can't get them to go. I'm missing something though. One thing I recognized this morning is I'm missing something. First day I probably had 23 pounds throwing that popper around and then winding around sneaky. Yesterday morning, I probably had about 18 and a half pounds, like pretty quick. And then I fished a bunch of junk water. So I thought, okay, well, if I fish good water, it'd be 22 pounds. This morning I can't get bit. That's a little bit concerning. I'm not trying to catch these fish. That's a big one too. I think after this one, we're curling this hook down. Because I would have rather caught that one tomorrow. That's a big one. That's a big one, and she ate that Cindy rig the way that I wanted her to eat it. Excuse me, the Sandy rig. She's not a spawner. Super, super long. How big are you? Son of a gun, they see me. Zeros. 4 1/4. Thank you. That was good. Okay, we're doing the right thing. It's validation. I'm in the right area. I'm doing the right thing. That's 3 fish over 4 pounds right now. Isolated grass patches. So cool and absolutely not cool at the same time. Okay, no more accidental fish catches. Clip that hook. I'll feel them pull on it. That's all I need to feel. I don't need to catch them. 7, 8, 9 foot. What I'm looking for is grass patches on perspective. You can sort of see them. It's like pieces of debris and then some grass grows around it. I was really worried this morning. I kind of got out here and my stuff had died a little bit. Like I had a miss at topwater. Fish were getting it kind of funny. Got really sunny and slick. Okay, what that validates though is I have a pattern that will hold up in the wind. Like that's where I figured out this pattern, and that's now where I'm dialing in this pattern, and it doesn't work great without it, but when that wind is blowing, this pattern works. I was able to figure out what these fish are doing, or at least some of these fish, and essentially it was in the same area where I missed that big one on a topwater this morning. One of the big things that I noticed is there are a lot of guys over there, but there's a bunch of fish now on bed. And I think what happened is the other day when those fish were in that top water, they were just pre-spawners. They were all fat, 3.5, 4.5 pounders. And now they're starting to push onto bed and they're starting to spawn with this new moon. Now, I figured that was going to be a deal. I figured that was going to happen. And there's still going to be some sort of topwater bite. I think depending on when we launch, we should be able to get over there and maybe catch 1 or 2 on a topwater. But I did find some deeper beds. I found some beds, well, inside and outside of everyone. So a lot of guys are fishing the 6 foot to 8 foot range. I found beds in 4 to 5 foot and then 9 to 11 foot. And I'm catching pretty much everything this week on this little sneaky. Little sneaky has been the deal. Last week when I pre-practiced, or 2 weeks ago, it was the Cindy rig was the deal. But for some reason, the sneaky seems to be the deal. Now I did take the hook off. I ended up catching a 4.5 or 4.25 and 4 pounder and a couple others that I didn't really want to catch today. But I do think that I'm starting to unlock something, maybe figure something out, and it goes to prove to me that yesterday wasn't a waste. I fished dead water, and it's dead, and I don't need to worry about it, and today I'm fishing the right water where I need to be. So really excited. It's also protected from the wind. I'm going to keep an eye on that with Omnia app and check that later, as well as look at some water clarity things, because the water is a little bit dirtier down there, which I think might help as well, and water temperature. So a lot of the water out of the north end got blown out, and so that south end is 65 and the north end is like 59, 60 degrees now. So this wind is going to change things really fast. I think that's why this top water bite didn't work over here. But we're just going to keep running around looking for some new stuff, maybe looking for some more sneaky stuff, those fish in that deeper zone or those fish kind of out doing things that other guys are missing. I also found some fish really, really shallow that could play as well. I felt them pull on the sneaky. Obviously don't have a hook, so didn't hook them. They're probably 3.5 to 4 pounds, so don't need to hook them to know about how big they are. Let's keep running around, keep looking, and I'll talk to you guys before the day's over. I just sat down to have a quick sandwich, and it's really hard to film because I'm not catching anything. I'm intentionally not setting the hook on fish, but I just went in shallower, so like everyone is out in the 6 to 7 to 8 foot range, and I just went into like 3 to 4 foot, and there's a bunch of beds. Part of me says I should be catching these fish, but I'm afraid to catch them that they're not going to be there tomorrow. So I did mark a bunch of beds, and I know there's fish on them because I could see them scoot away with perspective. I could get them to follow and even eat that sneaky, but I'm not really trying to catch these fish. These are like my backup fish. It's like if I'm not getting anything else going, I can come up and hopefully have a secure limit of like 3 to 4 pound fish. Again, we're supposed to get a hard west to northwest wind, so this west bank is going to pretty much be where the majority of the guys are fishing, ourselves included. But that fresh wave of fish spawning in the south end, and then these fish on the west shore are pretty much kind of my game plan so far. I'm just going to work my way up. I'm probably going to stay on the trolling motor like as far up as I can possibly get and just make sure I'm not missing anything. But these fish in like 3 to 4 foot kind of surprised me, and they're not that hard to find. I think everyone's just pushed out off the break trying to look for God only knows what. So that's kind of the game plan. I feel decent about tomorrow. I haven't caught a big one yet, and by big I mean like over 5 pounds. I don't know if anyone's on that caliber of fish right now, but I feel pretty good. I accidentally hooked about 3 fish over 4 pounds. For sure I hooked 2 over 4 pounds, and the other one I hooked and maybe I just cut the hook off, but pretty decent start. I feel like I have a good game plan. It just revalidated or maybe gave me a new starting spot for tomorrow, and now we're just going to look to explore, expand, and find some more stuff that I can use as either a plan or backup plan if things fall apart tomorrow. That pretty much wraps up practice. So let me give you guys a quick rundown of the things I figured out during practice and the things that I think are going to play during the tournament. Number one is going to be a morning bite of some sort. So getting to the spot early and getting out there to catch those fish first thing in the morning, I think is going to be really important. Now, one of the things about the tournament series we're fishing is that they don't send you until 7 a.m. I think that's somewhat good and bad, right? I'm not going to necessarily have as much time for that popper bite to work, that topwater bite, but I also think it means other guys aren't going to be able to capitalize on easy mayfly eaters. Without that topwater bite, it's going to really kind of maximize the effectiveness of the pattern that I put together. Now, most of my fish that I'm catching are in less than 10 foot of water. I would say 6 to 8 foot of water around some sort of cover. I think they might be spawning. Some of them are post-spawn, and there's definitely a couple mixed in that are just up there feeding around these big grass clumps. That's where most of my bites are coming. I did cut the hook off today, but I continued to get bites, and I actually found some sneaky bedding areas towards the end of the day in like 3 to 4 foot of water. I pushed up really, really shallow up in this cove where no one else seemed to be fishing. Everyone was out in that 6, 8, 10, 12 plus foot range. I snuck up really, really shallow, and I got some pretty good bites doing it. I don't know how big they were. I didn't hook them. I didn't weigh them, but that's kind of what I put together. Everything that I did today is on the west side of the lake. It's on the west and southwest side of the lake because we're going to be having a west to northwest wind tomorrow. And what that means is that it's going to be very difficult to fish the east side of the lake. The waves are going to be rolling in there. It's going to be really, really tough. I've been really paying a lot of attention to the Omnia app, as I've mentioned to you guys a couple different times. But with that wind coming out of the west, you basically have to fish the western shoreline, especially blowing up to 20 miles an hour. So catch your fish early, really maximize each and every bite because bites are coming at a premium. I am catching them on the Cindy rig, which is Great Lakes Finesse, Stealth Ball Head, and then a little drop minnow on the back, as well as the Great Lakes Finesse Sneaky with a drop minnow on the back. Like, that is my go-to. Like, I only have a popper, a Cindy rig, and a Sneaky. So those are my 3 go-to baits. That's what I caught everything on this week. I can't get them to bite a drop shot. Can't get them to bite like a tube dragged along bottom. I'm just slowly creeping that Sneaky and that Cindy around these shallow, isolated pieces of cover, as well as obviously some bedfish. So it's been an okay practice. I could go out tomorrow and catch 22 to 23 pounds, or I could go out tomorrow and catch 12 pounds. I don't really love spawn tournaments. I think it kind of makes fishing unpredictable. You don't know if your fish are going to be there. More unpredictable than I guess it would be otherwise. But the areas that I'm in are the right areas. We're going to race down to the spot. It's an area that a bunch of other boats are on, and just kind of hope that the sneaky deep beds that I found, some of the areas nearby, are going to play for us tomorrow. Now, again, this video is sponsored by Omnia. I really appreciate them partnering for this series. I'm very excited to fish some tournaments this year. It's a 4-tournament series. We have Hubbard Lake, we have Saginaw Bay, which is my home body of water. We have Houghton Lake, and then we have St. Clair to wrap up the season. Super, super excited to get it kicked off tomorrow morning. Durds is coming later tonight. We're going to try to put this thing together, hopefully go catch some fish. Go check out the Omnia Premium app. You can use my code. It's going to be right there on the screen, as well as linked down in the description below to get a free trial to their Omnia Premium app. It's helped me a lot in identifying the wind that's going to be blowing in, as well as identifying some key areas that I'm going to be targeting in tomorrow's tournament. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Stay tuned for that tournament video. It's going to be dropping very soon. As always, thank you guys for watching. Take care, tight lines. God bless. Pursue your passion.